In this session, we learn about installing and configuring PDO. PHP Data Objects or PDO is enabled by default in PHP 5.1.0 and above. In case the distribution of Linux you are using does not have PDO installed, install the relevant package. For example, in CentOS and Fedora, install the php-mysql package by giving the yum command yum install php-mysql. In Ubuntu, install the PHP 5-MySQL package. For example, give the command sudo apt-get install PHP 5-MySQL. PDO can be configured by changing the settings in the php.ini file. In this demo, we'll see how to install and configure PDO, PHP Data Objects. To install PDO, give the command dnf install php-mysql. This finds the php-pdo package as well as MySQL native driver. Press Y to install this. Once these packages are installed, a complete message will be displayed. Let me clear the screen. You can give the rpm-lq php-pdo command to view the files which have got installed. You can also give the command php-i grep PDO to see the output, and if you get this output, that means PDO MySQL support is installed. You can configure PDO by editing php-ini file. vi etc php-ini file opens the file. You can search for the PDO section. Over here, it has two parameters, PDO MySQL cache size set to 2000 and PDO MySQL default socket. If you want to change it, you can change it or you can leave it as it is. Just quit from here. In this video, we saw how to install and configure PDO, PHP Data Objects. In this session, we learn about creating connections with PDO. Connections are established by creating instances of the PDO base class. PDO require a valid database to connect, and if it is not specified, an exception is thrown. If there are any connection errors, the PDO exception object is thrown. For this, let's look at a script called pdoconnect.php that I have created. In this script, I have defined server name as localhost, username as root, password as Red Hat. Next, in the try block, I am trying to establish a new connection using this new constructor, PDO. In this, I specify the host name with the parameter server name and DB name as library. Also pass in the username and password. Next, I am setting an attribute error mode so that in case error happens, it should throw an exception. If connection is successfully established, the message connected successfully to MySQL database is displayed. Else, it goes to the cache block and a message connection failed along with its description is displayed. So let's run the script in a browser. So the message connected successfully to MySQL database is displayed, which shows that the successful connection has been made. So in this demo, we saw how to connect between MySQL and PHP using PHP Data Object, that is PDO. In this session, we learn about creating transactions and auto commit by using PDO. Transactions provide ACID features, where ACID stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. The PDO begin transaction method is used to initiate a transaction. The PDO commit method is used to commit a transaction. The PDO rollback method is used to roll back a transaction. Consider the account table which has account ID, account name, and balance. And there are two records, one which has Steve with balance $2,000 and Mike with balance of $5,000. Now we want to create a transaction where Mike has to give Steve $300. So Steve's account balance should increase by 300, and at the same time Mike's account balance should go down by $300. To do that, let's create a transaction using PDO script. I've broken down the script into two parts. First is the connection script called pconnect, where I'm connecting to my SQL Server database over here using PDO, setting an attribute of error mode and setting an exception, and then if connection fails, a message is being displayed. Now I'm saving this and I'm going to call this pconnect in my second script. I have a second script called PDO trans1.php. In that I will call the pconnect script. Over here in the first line I'm saying include pconnect.php. So the connection will be established using pconnect.php. Now let's just focus on the transaction part. By default, PDO creates an auto commit transactions. Now this mode has to be changed by using the begin transaction. If you want to specify your own transaction, you have to specify begin transaction in a try block. Now in first case, the value has to increase by 300, and in the second case, the value has to decrease by $300, where account ID is 2. So I have written these two update statement and I'm executing them. If both of them run perfectly fine, I'm committing them. If there is an exception, it will go to the cache block and the transaction will be rolled back. So now let's run this in a browser. So I give localhost PDO trans1.php. It says connected successfully and transaction successful. Now let's go back to our tables. So initially Steve has got 2000 and Mike has got 5000. Transaction has got executed and I'll refresh my screen. So we'll see that Steve has got $2,300 now and Mike has got 4,700. So the transaction successfully executed and the values were updated. Now I will try to simulate a failure of a transaction happening by giving an error deliberately in the script. So I will open the script and deliberately I will give an error over here. I will probably give this a small a. So this statement will not execute, but because this is not executing, even this statement will not execute and get rolled back. I'll go back to the browser and now I will refresh the screen so that this transaction is applied again. So now you see the connection was successful but transaction failed because base table was not found. And let's see what happens to the records. Initial stages we have got $2,300 and $4,700. Let's refresh this. The values remain same and the values remain same because the values are getting rolled back as the transaction had failed. So in this demo we saw how to use transactions using PDO. In this session we will learn about using prepared statements with PDO. Prepared statements are a compiled template in SQL that an application wants to run. These statements can be customized using variable parameters. Advantages of using prepared statements are these statements only need to be prepared once but can be executed multiple times, thereby using fewer resources and running faster. Parameters of prepared statements do not need to be quoted. Hence, no SQL injection occurs, leading to higher security. For this example, we will use the account table. The account table has got account ID, account name, and balance, three fields, and currently it has got two records. We will add more record using the prepare statement. Now let's look at the script. The script pconnect is a simple script which is creating a PDO connection. I have defined some three variables: server name, username and password. If connection is established, connected successfully message will be displayed, else exception will be thrown and connection failed message will be displayed. Now let's look at our PDO prepare script. In this script, I'm calling the connection using pconnect.php. Once the connection is established, I'm creating a statement using the prepare function. It has got insert into account, account ID, account name and balance with values question mark, question mark, question mark. These question marks are placeholders. Next, I'm going to bind them to the variables ID, name and balance. Next, these variables are assigned some values like 3 Jeff 2000 and then the statement is executed. So this will execute the prepared statement with these values. Similarly, I can assign different values like 4, Mary and 5000 and execute this prepared statement. So statement remains the same but the values change and it is executed. Once it is executed, record inserted message will be displayed. Now let's run this script. So once I run the script, connected successfully and records inserted message is displayed. So I will just refresh my table so that I can see what are the records in that right now. So 2 more records have got added to this table with the account ID 3 and 4. There is another version of this prepare statement available which uses named parameters. Let's look at it. So I'm opening PDO prepare1.php. It's similar to the previous one, only difference is here in the prepare statement. After establishing the connection, when I'm saying insert into account, account ID, name, balance, values, instead of question mark, question mark, question mark, I'm giving name parameters colon ACC ID colon ACC name colon ACC balance, and then I'm binding these parameters to variables over here. So named parameter ACC ID is bound to variable $ID. The name parameter ACC name is bound to $name and ACC bal is bound to $balance. Then we can assign different values to these variables like 5, Tom and 7000 is assigned to these variables and the statement which was prepared is executed. Next, the ID 6, Jane and 8000 is assigned to the variables and the statement is again executed and record inserted message is again displayed. So I will just save this and execute it. Though this output is similar, it is using a different script. Let's see now the table. I will refresh over here. And now you can see that this table has got 6 records. This 5th and 6th record has also got added to it using the prepare statement that used the named parameters. So in this session, we saw how to use prepare statement with PDO to insert records. In this session, we will learn about using stored procedures with PDO. To call a stored procedure from a PHP application, the SQL call statement is executed. The procedure that you call can include input parameters in, output parameters out, input and output parameters in out. For this example, we will use the book table which has got book ID, book name, author and book price as the fields. Currently, this has got 3 records. We will create a stored procedure which will accept the book ID and return the book name, author and price. We will then use our PHP script to run that stored procedure and get these values. First step, we will create the stored procedure. So in this script, we have written use library. The delimiter is set to // The statement is create procedure sp get book details. It has got first parameter in bid int. Second parameter is output parameter bname varchar 50. Third parameter is a name varchar 50. Fourth parameter is price int. After this, we have a begin statement followed by select book name, author, book price into bname, a name and price from book where book id is equal to bid followed by n and // and the delimiter is set back to semicolon. Let's run this script in MySQL. So I have given the command mysql-u root-p red hat create procedure. When I execute, the procedure is created. We can check in phpMyAdmin. Let me refresh the screen. So over here under procedures, this procedure has got created. Next, let's create a PHP script that will call this stored procedure. In this script, I have defined 4 variables: server name, username, password and DB name. These will be required to create the connection. I am creating a PDO object with the help of a constructor. I am passing these 4 parameters. Next, I am setting the attribute of error mode to exception. If connection is successful, a success message is displayed. Else, connection failed message is displayed. Next, I display the message PDO calling stored procedure with input and output parameters. I have got input parameter set as 1. Next, I am creating a prepare statement with call sp get book details, the name of the procedure with parameters :id and output parameter @bname, @aname and @price. Next, I am binding the input parameter to the id and I am executing the statement. Next, I am running a query to get the values of the output parameters, that is @bname, aname and price. These values are taken and put in the output variable. This output variable is printed using the printr function. Now let's run this script. So when I run this script, successful connection to MySQL database happens. The PDO is calling the stored procedure with input and output parameters. The array which is having the book name, name and price is displayed. I'm going to change the input value to 2 from 1. And now again I'm going to refresh the screen. So instead of the value for the first record, the second record is getting displayed over here. It has got Fatal Burn, Lisa Jackson, and this is what is there in my second record. So in this demo, we just saw how to use stored procedure along with PDO. In this session, we will learn about handling errors by using PDO. PDO offers 3 error handling strategies. These are error mode silent, error mode warning, and error mode exception. The PDO error code method returns a single SQL state code. PDO error info fetches extended error information associated with the last operation on the database handle. In this demo, we look at the 3 error handling modes provided by PDO. First, let's look at the silent mode. The silent mode is the default mode. PDO will simply set the error code for you to inspect using PDO error code and PDO error info functions. In this script, what we are doing is we are creating an instance of PDO base class. I'm passing the parameters to the constructor, server name, library as the DB name, username and password. Then over here, I'm setting the error mode to silent using the set attribute function. Next, connected successfully to MySQL message is displayed. in case there is any error, exception is generated and an error message will be displayed using the catch block. Next, what I'm trying to do is I'm calling a table that does not exist in the database. Since this is silent mode, there is no error message which is generated automatically. However, there are two functions, error code and error info, which we can inspect. So I have put over here, if result, which is the variable over here, res, is equal to false, then print the error code and also the error information using the print underscore r function. So let's run this script now. I'm entering the URL for the PDO silent script. So it says connected successfully to MySQL database, and then it displays the error code and error information using the functions error code and error info. It says over here table library.books doesn't exist. Now let's look at the warn level. The warn mode is similar to the silent mode. Apart from the silent mode functionality, it also generates a warning message. This is useful in testing and debugging. We use this warning mode if we want to see the error without stopping the flow of the program. So again, I'm creating an instance of the PDO base class in the try block. I'm passing the parameters in the constructor, which are the server name, library as the database name, and username and password. Next, I'm setting the PDO error mode to warning using set attribute function. I'm passing the first parameter as attribute error mode and second parameter as error mode underscore warning. Next, I display the message connected successfully to MySQL if connection is successful. If connection is not successful, the error message in the catch block will get displayed. The error reporting level I have set to all using error reporting function. Also, I am setting the value of configuration options as display errors 1. Also, I am setting the date time zone to Asia Calcutta. Next, I am calling the query select star from books where books table does not really exist. Now let's run this script. So when I run this script, the connection is successfully established. However, I get the warning message displayed that base table or view is not found. Table library.books doesn't exist. So this warning is being displayed because of the warn mode. Now let's look at the exception mode. In this mode, PDO will set error code and also throw a PDO exception. This is useful in debugging. Now in this script, I am setting up a new instance of PDO base class, and I am also passing the various parameters to the constructor. Next, I am setting the PDO error mode to exception. This is done using set attribute function. I am passing attribute error mode and PDO error mode exception as parameters. Next, I display connected successfully to MySQL database message. If there is any error in the connection, error message is displayed using the catch block. Next, in the try block, I am calling the query select star from books where books table does not exist. Since it doesn't exist, an exception is generated and this query failed message will be displayed along with the message using the get message function. Now let's run this script. So over here you can see it says connected successfully to MySQL database. However, query failed. Base table or view not found. Table library.book doesn't exist. This is the message which is generated because an exception is being generated. So we saw three modes. First was silent, second was warn, and third was exception. So in this demo, we looked at the three error handling modes provided by PDO. In this demo, we will learn about creating databases and tables by using PHP data objects, PDO. Let's look at the script PDO createDB.php that will help us create a database. In this script, I have defined server name as localhost, username as root, password as Red Hat, and DB name as test. Next, in a try block, I am creating a connection using the PDO constructor and passing these variables as parameters. I'm also setting the error mode to exception. That means in case there is an error in making any connection, an exception should get generated. Next, I define a SQL statement which will help us create a database. The statement is create database my library. This will help us create a database called my library. Next, we execute that SQL statement using this exec function. If everything goes well, echo will give a message create database query executed successfully, else an exception will be raised and the catch block will catch that exception and display the message error along with the description. Finally, we close the connection. Now let's run this script. I'll open my browser. Under PDO script, there is a file called PDO createdb.php. So I'll give that path. So it gives a message create database query executed successfully. So let's see in phpMyAdmin. Here a new database has to be visible. So let me refresh the screen. So you can see over here my library. This was not there earlier, and using this script I have just now created this my library database. Currently it doesn't have any table and it has just got created. So now let's move to the next part of the demo, which is about creating a table using a script. So let's look at the script. Let's look at the PDO createTable.php script. In this script, initially I define variables, server name assign it to localhost, username assign it to root, password assign it to Red Hat, and DB name as my library. In the try block, I make a connection using PDO constructor and pass these variables as parameters. I also set the error mode to exception to generate an exception in case of any error. Next, I define an SQL statement that will help us to create a table structure. The SQL statement is create table web users. Web users is the name of the table here. It has got 4 fields: user ID int, which is not null. It is also going to be auto incremented and is also the primary key. Next is username, which is varchar 50, user email, which is varchar 100, and user age, which is int. So these 4 fields will be created in this table. Next, we execute the statement using the connection object and exec function. Finally, we display a message create table query executed successfully. In case there is an error, the catch block will get the error message and will display the error message. Finally, we close the connection. Now let me execute this script. In the browser, I will open another tab. So I have given the path for the PDO create table script. I execute that script and I get a message create table query executed successfully. Now let's go to phpMyAdmin and see this table. Currently my library does not have any table. Let me refresh the screen. Now I can see web users table created under it. And let's look at the structure. Here it shows the structure as user ID, which is the primary key, username varchar 50, email varchar 100, and user age, which is int. So this table structure has just now been created with the help of the script which we have written, and it is using PDO connection. So in this session, we learned about creating databases and tables by using PHP data objects or PDO. In this demo, we will learn about inserting data into database by using PDO. For this example, we will use web users table. This has got user ID as primary key, username, user email, and user age fields. Now let's look at the insert.php script. In this script, I have defined server name as localhost, username as root, password as Red Hat, and DB name as my library. I have defined these four variables. Next, in the try block, I am establishing the connection. To create the connection, I am creating an instance of the PDO base class and calling its constructor. In this constructor, I am passing the parameters. These parameters are specifying database source, username, and password. Next, I am setting the attribute, which is setting the error mode to exception. That means if an error occurs, an exception will be generated and catch block will be called. Next, I am defining an SQL statement, which is insert into web users username, user email, and age. These are the three fields, and the values I'm putting in that field are Philip at gmail.com, and 30. I have not put any value for user ID because that's automatically generated. Finally, I am displaying a message insert query executed successfully if the exec function is going to execute properly. That function will execute and generate the required result. In case there is any error, then catch block will get called and an error message will be displayed. Finally, we close the connection by setting connection object to null. Now let's save this script and run it. So when I run this script, it says insert query executed successfully. Let's go to phpMyAdmin and see if the record has got inserted. Click on the browse option. So I can see over here user ID 1, Philip at gmail.com, and 30. The record has got inserted and user ID 1 has got automatically generated. This was a simple method of creating a script to insert a record. Now let's look at another method, another example in which I will have the form displayed on the screen and user will be able to insert record using that form. So first of all, let's look at that output and then I will show you the actual script which will be used to create that form. So okay, I have run that script index.php which is displaying the form. It has got three fields: username, user email, and age, and a save button. It is also showing one record which we had just now inserted. So let's add one more record into this table. So I have added one more record, Tom at gmail.com, and 30. Let's add one more record in it. So you can see as and when I'm adding a record, that value is also getting displayed in a table below the form. So now let's look at the code which is helping me to create this form and also generating this table which will display the records in the table. We can also check whatever we have entered will also be there in phpMyAdmin. If I click again on the browse button and refresh this table, you can see that now the three records which I have added are also visible in phpMyAdmin. Now let's look at the script which is allowing me to create this form and creating the table below it. In this folder, I have got four files. One is crude.php, database.db, dbpdo.php, and index.php. Crude.php will have the logic to save the records. Database DB is just used to create the structure. dbpdo.php is used to create the connection, and index.php is used to display the form and the table. So let's look at these files one by one. So in the database.db, I have nothing but the structure of the table being defined. So I'm not executing it. This has already been created earlier. Let's look at dbpdo.php. In this, I'm defining 4 variables and assigning them values. Then using the try block and using the constructor to create the connection, I'm creating the instance of PDO base class and passing these values which I had defined earlier. Next, I'm also setting the attribute. I'm setting the error mode to error exception. This is in case there is any error, an exception should be generated. Then I have a catch block to display any particular error if there is problem with connectivity. So I will be calling this file from other files. Now let's look at the next file. This is the index.php file. This is calling crude.php. It has got HTML tags to create the form. For example, it is showing title, heading, body starting with the heading of managing data using PDO. Next, the form method post tag starts. The table is defined. Next, input type text, name, username, placeholder username, size 50 defines one text box. Next, another text box, input type text, name, user, email, placeholder user email, size 50 is defined. Next, input type text, username, user age, placeholder user age is defined. Next, a button of type submit, and it is displaying save message. This is the form which is helping us insert the records. Once the record is saved, we are also displaying the values in a table. So the next table which is following the form is defined over here. Next, I have got a statement select star from web users order by user ID. I execute that statement and I get some results. In case the results are more than 0, that means I'm checking the row count, and if the row count is greater than 0, I display these results in a while loop. Else I say no rows to display message. So in the while loop, I am using the fetch associate function. The fetch associate function helps us to get the values in an associative array with field names as the key. So once I get the values, I am displaying it using the echo command over here using row and the field names. This is defining the table. I am finally closing the HTML tag. Now once the save button is clicked, it is going to call the crude.php. This is the file which is called once the save button is clicked. So I'm checking over here if is set $post save. So that means if the save button is clicked, I'm using the $_post command to get the values from the form and storing them into these variables like $username, $user email, $user age. Next, I'm using the prepare command to insert values into the web user table. The command is insert into web users, username, user email, user age, values, :name, :email, and :age. These are named parameters. Next, what I do is I bind these parameters to variables. So :name is mapped to $username, :email is mapped to $user email, and :age is mapped to $user age. So those values will be passed to the insert function. Finally, I execute the command. This will insert the record into the table. So you can see the script which is helping me insert the records into the table. So we saw 2 methods. One was a simple script which was inserting a record into the table. Next, we saw a form followed by a table which is showing us how to insert a record into the table. So in this demo, we saw how to insert data into database by using PDO. In this demo, we will learn about retrieving data from database by using PDO. For this demo, we will use web users table, which has got user ID, username, user email, and user age fields. Currently, this table has got 3 records. Let's look at a script that will retrieve these 3 records and display it in a web browser. In this script, I have defined variables server name, username, password, and DB name. Server name is assigned to localhost. Username has got value root. Password has got value Red Hat. And DB name has got value my library. In the try block, I am trying to establish a connection. I create the instance of the PDO base class and pass these parameters, that is the server name, DB name, username, and password to it to create the connection object. Next, I set the attribute, that is the error mode, to exception so that exceptions is raised. Next, I define a SQL statement, that is select username, user email, user age from web users. Next, I execute the statement and assign the result to the result variable. Next, we check if there are rows to be displayed using the if statement. We use the row count function to check if there are rows to be displayed. We use the while loop to display the rows. We fetch the results as associative array with field names as key using the fetch function. Using the echo command, we then display these values on the web browser, ending it with the br tag. In case there are no rows, that means the row count was 0, we display no rows to display. If there is error, then the catch block will get executed and the error message will be displayed. Finally, the connection is terminated by setting the connection object to null. Now let's run this script. So when I run this script, you can see Philip, Tom, and Jane records getting displayed in the browser. Now we will see one more example in which these same records will be displayed, however, in a tabular format. So let's look at how they will be displayed and then I will explain you the script that is doing it. This is the output where the records are getting displayed in a tabular format. I've got the user ID, username, user email, and user age all in a table. Now let's look at the script which is allowing us to do this. In this folder, I have got crude.php, database.db, dbpdo.php, and index.php. Let's look at these files one by one. In database.db, I'm just defining the structure of the table, and we are not really going to use this file right now. In dbpdo.php, we are establishing the connection using PDO constructor like we had done earlier and passing the parameters, that is server name, username, password, and DB name. We are also setting the attributes to exception. If there is a problem, catch block is going to be executed and it will display an error message. We are not going to use crude.php in this script. So let's look at the index.php. In this index.php, we are defining the table. In this script, we are including the crew.php file, which is actually going to include the connection file. Next, we are defining the HTML tags for header, for body. We say managing data using PDO. Next, the table tag is used to start the table. Next, we use the prepare statement and use the select command. Select star from web users, order by user ID. We execute that prepared statement. Next, we check if the row count is more than 0. That means there are records to be displayed. We will use the while loop to display all the records. Else, it will go to the else part and display no rows to display. In the while statement, the rows are fetched using the fetch associate function. The fetch associate function gets the values in associative array with field name as key. Using the PHP echo statements, we fill in the table using the user ID, username, user email, and user age values. And finally, we close all the HTML tags over here, the closing of table, center, body, and HTML tag. So this is the script which we have created. And once we run it, this is the output which is being used to display the table. In this demo, we saw two scripts. One was using the echo statement and displaying very plainly the values of the table. And second was using formatting and using a tabular format to display the values in a table. So in this demo, we learned about retrieving data from database by using PDO. In this demo, we will learn about updating data by using PDO. For this example, we will use web user table, which has got user ID, username, user email, and user age fields. Currently, it has got 3 records: 1 Philip, 2 Tom, 3 Jane. Let's try to change one of the records, let's say first record, using a script. Let's look at that script. In this script, I have got variable server name, which is assigned value localhost, username assigned value root, password assigned value Red Hat, and DB name, which has got value my library. These values will be used in the try block. When I am using the PDO constructor, I am creating an instance of the PDO base class and passing these parameters, that is server name, DB name, username, and password. I'm also setting the attribute, which is the error mode, to exception. In case there is a problem, an error message will be displayed in the catch block. Next, I define a SQL statement, that is update web user, set user name equal to Tara, user email equal to tbrown@gmail.com, user age equal to 12, where user ID is equal to 1. Next, I execute this SQL statement and display that the query was executed successfully. In the end, we set the connection to null. And now let's run the script. When the script is executed, update query executed successfully message is displayed. Now let's see the change. In phpMyAdmin, currently user ID 1 has got username Philip, user email is philip at gmail, and age is 30. Now when I click on browse again, it refreshes the value and I can see that the value Tara, tbrown at gmail, and user age 24 is being displayed. So this is done through the script. Now let's look at another example where it will show a form and let me update the values using that form. First, let's look at the output. I can see a form which has got username, user email, and user age, and the save button in it. Apart from it, there's a table which shows current values in the table, and also an edit button is there. So let's say I click on this edit button. A dialog box comes. Are you sure you want to edit this record? Click OK. So the value over here in the form are updated. Let me change these values. Then I click on the update button. As I click on the update button, you can see the value over here in the second record getting updated. Now let's look at the script which is helping me to do this. In this directory, I have got 4 files: crude.php, database.db, dbpdo.php, and index.php. The crude.php has got the logic to update the values. Database DB is just the structure of the table. dbpdo.php will help me create the connection, and index.php is the front end displaying the form. So let's look at these files one by one. The database DB has got the structure defined for web users. We are not using this file over here. The dbpdo.php is using the PDO constructor to establish the connection just like the previous script. It has got server name, username, password, and DB name. And it is also instance of a PDO base class being created by passing parameters like server name, DB name, username, and password in this. Next, the attribute is being set to error mode, exception. In case there is any error, then an error message will get displayed. Next, we look at the crude.php. In this, initially, I have got the code for inserting data, so let's ignore that. Let's focus on the updating data code. So once I'm checking that if the edit link was clicked, if it was clicked, then I'm getting the ID of which particular record was getting updated, whether it was record 1 or 2 or 3. That value is getting stored in this $ID variable. Next, I defined a statement using the prepare function. Select star from web users where user ID is equal to $ID. This ID is just a named parameter. I bind this parameter to the variable $ID and I execute the statement so that the values are retrieved and can be updated onto the form. So when I say get row statement fetch PDO fetch associate, the values of the record will be picked up from the table and will be updated in the form. Similarly, when I click on the update button, the values which have been updated in the form are placed in these variables, that is user ID, username, user email, and age are all picked up from the form and placed in these variables. Then I am setting a statement using the prepare function. Update web user set username equal to name, user email equal to colon email, user age equal to colon age, where user ID is equal to colon ID. Then I bind these parameters to these variables, that is the new values, and I execute the statement. I also set the location as index.php so that the updated values are also displayed in the table below the form. This is the logic being stored in the crude.php. Finally, let's look at the index.php, which is the front end, which is showing you the values and also letting you update them. So what does this particular file have? It has got nothing but include once crude.php. Next, it is including the HTML tags like head, title, body, and defining the form. In the form, it has got input type text, name, username, placeholder is username, size is 50. Along with it, it has got a value which is equal to a PHP tag, that is if I've clicked on the edit button, it is checking. If I've clicked on the edit button, then the username will be updated from the table. Similarly, I have got next field which is user email, and in case I have got the value to be updated, if I have already clicked on the edit button, the value will be updated. Similarly, the last field is the age, where again I am going to check if I've clicked on the edit button. I am echoing the get row user age to update it so that the value can be changed. That means I am showing the current values. Also, from the save button, if I already clicked on edit, the button will change to update. That means now I need to click on the update link. By default, it was showing the save link. This is the end of the form. Below the form, there is a table which has got the edit link. Now let's see where it is coming. Currently, there is nothing special over here, but just a select statement, select star from web users ordered by user ID. And I execute the statement and I check if there are records to be displayed. While there are records, I keep on running the while loop and I keep on displaying the user ID, name, email, and age in the table. Along with it, I also add one more column which has got a href equal to question mark edit is equal to php echo dollar $row user ID. This will get the value of user ID and it will pass it so that I'm able to update the right record. And it will also check on click return confirm. Are you sure you want to edit this record? So it will check whether do you really want to edit this record. Dialog box will be displayed and a hyperlink edit is being displayed. At the end, if there are no records, it will display no rows to display. And finally, we close all the tags, that is table, center, body, and HTML tags are closed. So this is the script which is getting executed in the backend. If I click on edit over here, a dialog box comes. I click OK. These values are getting updated over here in the form. I can update it over here. Let's say I change the values and I click on update. You can see the value getting changed in this third record. So in this demo, we saw one method was using a simple query to update the records. Second, we saw a method whereby which the values are displayed. I have an edit option which let me edit the records using the form. So in this demo, we learned about updating data by using PDO. Demo, we will learn about deleting data by using PDO. For this example, we will use web user table which has got user ID, username, user email, and user age fields. Currently, it has got 3 records: 1 Tara, 2 Lisa, and 3 Steve. Let's try to delete the first record using a script. Let's look at that script. Let's look at delete.php. In this script, I have defined server name, username, password, and DB name and assigned them values related to my system. Next, I am creating an instance of PDO base class and passing these values to the constructor, that is server name, DB name, username, and password. I'm also setting the attribute to the error mode, which is set to exception. Next, I define a SQL statement delete from web users where user ID equal to 1. That means wherever user ID is 1, it is going to delete that record. We execute that statement and display query executed successfully. In case there was an error, an error message will be displayed. Finally, we set the connection to null. Now let's run this script. So once the script is executed, delete query executed successfully is displayed. Now currently it has got 3 records. Let me refresh this browser. You can see that the first record just now got disappeared from the screen. It has been deleted using the script. Let's look at another example where I will show the values and let user select the value and delete that particular record. Let's look at the output first and then look at the script. Now in this example, I have got the table which is showing the current two records. Along with it, it is showing a delete button. So when I click on the delete button, it says, are you sure you want to delete this record? If I say OK, that record is deleted from here. I can also check in from my PHP myadmin that the second record is now deleted. So now let's look at the script which is allowing me to do this. I've got 4 files in this folder: crude.php, database.db, dbpdo.php and index.php. The database.db is nothing but structure of the table which we are not going to use right now. The dbpdo.php is helping me create a connection. It is creating an instance of PDO base class. First, the 4 variables are defined and they are passed to the constructor. Also, the attribute is being set to exception. If there is an error, then an error message will be displayed in the catch block. Now let's look at the crude.php. Initially, it has got insert code, update code and delete code at the end. Let's just focus only on the delete code. Now if the delete button was clicked, so it is checking over here that del button was pressed or not. It is going to get the ID against which the del button was pressed using this $_get. Next, the connection is using the prepare function to create a statement delete from web users where user ID equal to $ID. Next, the $ID name is bound to the variable $user ID and this script is executed so that that ID is deleted. Finally, the location is set to index.php so that the table is also refreshed on the screen. If there is an error, then an error message would get displayed in the catch block. So in the end, we look at the index.php. In this, initially we have got the form which we are not using in this case, so I'll skip that. But we are using is the second table which is below the form. So here it is. In this table, the values are being retrieved from the database using select star from web users, and in a while loop they are getting displayed in a tabular format. Along with it, there are two columns. One is for edit and the second is for delete. So let's focus on the delete one. It has got a href equal to question mark del equal to php echo $row user ID, so that the user ID can be passed to the function which is going to delete it. And it has also got on click return confirm, are you sure you want to delete this record, so that the confirmation is asked when this link is clicked. So that displays the delete link in this particular table. And finally, we have an else where if there are no rows, then it will display no rows to display, and we close all the tags table, center, body and HTML. So I quit from here and let's see that form again. So this is the form and I'll just execute this delete function once again. So if I were to click on it and if I say cancel, nothing happens. However, if I click on this and say OK, that record is also deleted and it says no rows to display. So in this demo, we saw one method was deleting query using a simple script and one was using form and a table. So in this demo, we learned about deleting data by using PDO. This exercise, you will create the product table in MySQL that has the following fields: product ID int, product name varchar50, product price int. Use PDO to connect the product table in MySQL with PHP scripts to perform the following operations: insert data, update data, delete data, view data. Now pause the video and perform the exercise. When you're finished with this exercise, Start the video and compare it with what I came up with. Let's look at the solution to the exercise. Over here, I have a form which is using PDO to manage the data. Using this form, I can insert a record. Below the form, there is a table which is picking up the value from the database and displaying it. It is also having links for edit and delete. These links can be used to edit a record or delete a record. Let me run through this form once. I will add one more record to this. Let's say cherry 60 and I click on save. This record is added to the database and the value is updated in the table below. Let me edit a record, let's say the first one. A message is displayed, are you sure you want to edit this record? I click OK. Instead of apple, let's change it to banana. And let's change this value to 60. I click update and you can see it getting reflected in the table below. I can also delete a particular record. Let's say I delete the second record for orange. I can click on delete. It says, are you sure you want to delete this record? I can say OK. And that record is deleted. So I have got functionality to insert. I have got functionality to edit, functionality to delete, as well as the view is automatically happening for the records in the database. So let's look at the code which is enabling me to do all this. So in this folder, I have got code.php, database.db, dbpdo.php and index.php. Let's look at these files one by one. In the database.db, I have got script to create that product table. It says use my library, create table product ID int, not null, auto increment primary key, product name varchar 50 and product price int. So I have already executed the script to create the table. Let's look at dbpdo. In this script, I have got server name, username, password and db name. They are assigned values for the system. In the try block, connection is being made using the constructor. These values are passed as parameter, and also set attribute function is used to change the error mode to exception. In case there is an exception, the catch block will be executed and it will display an error message. This connection will be called from the other scripts as well. So in the code.php, the first line is include once dbpdo.php. This has got code for inserting data, updating data and deleting data. Let's look at it one by one. So if I have already set the save button, that means if I click on the save button, the values of product name and price will be picked up from the form and it will create a prepare statement which has got insert into product name, product price and values prod name and prod price. Next, these parameters are bound to the variables which are picked up from the form. The statement is executed over here. So values are picked up from the form and inserted into the database using this statements. So now if I wanted to update the data, I'll click on the edit button. When I click on the edit button, the ID will be picked up and stored in the $ID variable. Next, I'm defining a statement which is being prepared using the prepare function. Select star from product where product ID equal to $ID. Then I'm binding this using the bind param. That $ID is bound to $ID variable and the statement is executed. It will fetch the record from the database and update it in this get row variable. This will be used by the script to update the form. Once the changes have been made in the form, I will click on the update button and then this portion of the script will be executed. That means is set post update. That means I have clicked on the update button. I will pick up the product ID, product name and product price from the form. I am preparing a statement which is the update statement and I am setting the product name to prod name, product price to prod price where product ID is equal to prod ID. I am binding the parameters using the bind param function. Product name is bound and product price and product ID are bound to the variable, then executing the statement. This will update the record in the database. Finally, I am setting the header to index.php so that the records are displayed on the screen. Finally, let's look at code for deleting data. So if I click on the delete function, I'll get the product ID which I want to delete. I am preparing a statement using the prepare function. Delete from product where product ID equal to prod ID. Then I bind it using bind parent function where :prod ID is bound to $prod ID, and I execute that statement. This will delete the record from the database, and I set the location to index.php so that the updated values are reflected on the screen. In case anything goes wrong, error message will be displayed. Next, let's look at index.php. In this, first of all, I am including cur.php. Then I have code for HTML which has got head, title. Then I am centering everything. Then I have got body, managing data using PDO. Header is displayed. Next, I have a form which is used to input the data or update the data. In this form, I have got input type text, product name, placeholder product name, size 50, value. This value will be there when I am clicking on the update link. Here, if is set get edit, that means I am updating something, it will get the row product name from the table and display it in the form. Next, it also has a field for price, that is input text type name product price. Placeholder is product price. Value will be used if I have clicked on the edit button. So if is set get edit echo $get row product price will show the product price in the form. Also, if I have clicked on the edit button, the button label will change to update, else it will show the button as save. So that will end the table and the form. Finally, let's look at one more table which is being used to display the records in the table. I am creating a prepare statement. It has select star from product order by product ID. I execute the statement, and if there are some records, using the if statement, I am checking the row count. If it is more than 0, that means there are some records to be displayed. Using the while loop, I am picking the value one by one in $row variable. Using the while loop, I am going to display the records one by one. I am using the fetch function and using fetch associate option. One by one, I am getting the rows and displaying this in a table format. In TD, I am echoing the product ID, product name, and product price. This table has also got two more columns. One is edit. This is the code for edit. href is equal to $edit is equal to $php echo $row product ID. This will display the link. So when I click on this edit button, it will also show a dialog box that are you sure you want to edit this record? Similarly, I have got one more column which has delete link, which is showing the product ID in the hyperlink. So it says href is equal to $del is equal to. So the product ID will be passed on as the href, and it will also ask for confirmation. Are you sure you want to delete this record? So once we do that, we close the table, else we will display no rows to display. And then we finally close table, center, body, and HTML tags. So this is the code for the index.php. Using this file, we have created this form and the table, and using this, we have created the solution. So in this demo, we saw the solution of how we can manage the data using PDO.